Stephen A. Smith, welcome to Oklahoma City.
Man, it's good to be here. How you doing?
Doing great. What's your impression so far?
Well, listen, first of all, I'm here in the studio. It's immaculate. The hospitality has been exceptional. I really, really appreciate everything. And I'm really, really excited about just the Western Conference Finals and OKC and Minnesota going at one another. We're here for ESPN and ABC's NBA Countdown. And so this is the kind of series that you wanted, that you waited for. And I'm happy that I'm in OKC instead of Denver for this epic encounter.
Yeah, I know you were here late last night, but as you get out today, you'll probably see the flags out, the painted windows. Folks here, very excited, hoping for another chance to go to the NBA Finals. What are the keys for the Thunder to win today and to win this series?
Well, I think, first of all, they have to continue to be the piranhas that they are defensively. This is an elite defensive team. There is no denying that, and they hang their hat on that. And they played exceptional defense when it counted most against Denver, and that's why they ended up winning that series. But offensively, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's my MVP this year, I voted for him last year, I voted for him this year. I have a vote, and I think he deserves it, and I think he will win it. He's got to show up and be an MVP because there's this dude on the other side named Anthony Edwards, a.k.a. Ant-Man. He is coming. This is a special player, a special kind of competitor that is like a shark in blood-infested waters. He comes for you. And I think him knowing what Oklahoma City brings to the table, how formidable they are, he's a person that's going to answer the call. I think that's who he is. That's what he's made of. So Shai needs to be that way as well. But I've often said that the key to this team's success is Jalen Williams. He showed up in Game 7, thank goodness. Because I think he's an exceptional talent. I don't understand how he's disappeared on too many occasions during the playoffs. Games 4, 5, and 6, he was awful. Let's just call it what it is. He cannot afford to be that way in this series if the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to go to the NBA Finals. So I think it's incredibly important to understand that. Of course, the Chet Holmgrens, the Alex Carusos, the Isaiah Hartensteins, and those guys, they got to show up collectively, be who they are. They're a deep team, they're a young team, they got a bunch of young thoroughbreds. But to me, the key is that backcourt. The key is SGA and obviously Jalen Williams.
You were talking about Anthony Edwards and the comparison with SGA. I saw the clip from your interview last year where Anthony Edwards said he was a better player. I wonder where the comparison in your mind with those two players now.
Well, first of all, I think that, for basketball aficionados, there was a guy, a scoring machine many, many years ago, whose nickname was the Iceman, based out of San Antonio. His name was George Gervin. Yeah. I think that SGA is an elevated level of that. He's just silky smooth. He's automatic. He's something special to behold. And his personality is phenomenal as well. Just a really cool dude, obviously a team-oriented player who has all the requisite skills and plays on both sides of the ball. He is truly worthy, in my opinion, of being the league MVP this year, and I've been saying that all year long. But when you look at Ant-Man, the difference in their game is primarily highlighted in the difference in their personalities. Ant-Man was the leading three-point shooter this year, hitting 323 pointers for the regular season. Ant-Man is a Skywalker whenever he wants to be. But his level of aggression, his bravado, the way that he comes after it, in my experience covering professional sports, that it factor is never something that you can just shove aside or ignore. The person whose skill set is comparable to anybody else's, but who wants it and wants it bad. And Shai gives you the impression that Shai is just going to be a model of consistency. He's going to come with it every night, and he's going to find a way to be ultra effective. Ant-Man is somebody that smells blood, and he's in attack mode. And whatever smoke is coming his way, he wants it. He invites it. It does something for him. It's like spinach did for Popeye, for crying out loud. That's what we're talking about with Ant-Man. And I believe that those are the kind of things that ultimately propel you to victory. And that's what makes this so interesting, because I think OKC should be the favorite, but Minnesota can beat this team. And I believe this series has a Game 7 written all over it.
How important is tonight's game? Does OKC have to win tonight?
No, I think Minnesota I think, I'm sorry, I think that Minnesota is the one that doesn't have to win. You're right. OKC does, in my opinion. And I don't mean as if they lose, they'll lose the series, because I think I could see both of these teams winning the game on the other's home court. My issue with Minnesota, or rather OKC, is that because it's Ant-Man that we're talking about, you don't want to find yourself in a hole starting off the series knowing that you're going to have to go back to Minnesota in order to steal one to get back to Oklahoma City and regain home court advantage. I don't think any team can afford, easily anyway, to give up whatever advantage that they have. And so I think in that regard, considering this home turf, how important it is, the rabid following that it has, it's one thing going up against a Denver team led by one of the greatest players of our time, Nikola Jokic. But Denver didn't have the supplementary parts around him. Michael Porter was injured. Aaron Gordon got injured. Russell Westbrook is not what he used to be, even though he's a future Hall of Famer. Chris Braun is a really nice player, but not that big of a difference maker in a lot of people's eyes. And they don't have the depth that they once had in Denver. Minnesota's a little bit different. And when you look at what they bring to the table, they're younger, they're better defenders, they're longer. Even Ant-Man, their superstar, defends. Jaden McDaniels defends. Naz Reid defends. Rudy Gobert, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. So they have the potential to throw at OKC what OKC usually is throwing at everybody else. And that's what makes this very interesting. And then when you look at, I know that Rudy Gobert is no Jokic, but Jokic is no Rudy Gobert defensively. And Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren having to deal with that, it's going to be real interesting to see how that pans out for them as well.
You mentioned home court advantage. I know Loud City, as it's nicknamed, right here in Oklahoma City. Which team do you think will have a better home court advantage? The noise, I was there for Game 7 against the Nuggets, and it was electric. Do you think that gives Oklahoma City an edge when they're home?
It should. It should. But again, they're relatively young, so they feed off of that adrenaline, and we get that. But if you're going against somebody that won't go away, and they're there, regardless of the noise working against them, because they're the road team, then that's something that the pressure amps up as the game wanes and you can't get them away from you. And I think that when you look at Minnesota, that's the kind of team that they are. They just stay in there, you know. Here you are, you're up 10, you're up 12, you're up 15, and then the next thing you know, you're only up 5. And it's 2 minutes left. You're up 3, or it's 3 minutes left, and you're like, damn, they're still here. They can win this game. They won't go away. That's how Minnesota is. And the reason why that's interesting is it's also OKC. They won't go away. They're there, and they're constantly lurking, looking for a moment of slippage that they can exploit and take advantage of. And when both teams are of that mindset, again, that makes it for a very interesting, compelling series, which is why I think this is a pick'em for a 7-game series.
We've been hearing all season long, well, this Thunder team's too young, not enough playoff experience. Do you think they grew up a little bit against the Nuggets?
I think they grew up, but I think we're going to also keep we got to keep our eyes on Dagnall and because he's got some, he's got growing pains too. He's been coaching this team for 5 years. We know what he brings to the table. He is to be respected. But I'm a person that's been relatively critical of the franchise from the coaching standpoint, because I think in terms of player personnel, I think that Sam Presti has done an absolutely exceptional job. When you look at the history of the players that he's had on this roster, is rife with Hall of Famers. You got Kevin Durant, you got Russell Westbrook, you got James Harden. You have role players like Serge Ibaka and Reggie Jackson in the starting lineup. You had a Victor Oladipo here. You had a Paul George here. You had a Carmelo Anthony here. Now you got Shai and Jalen Williams. Everywhere you turn, they've had all-world players. But in 17 years, this man, Sam Presti, doesn't have one single championship to show for it. And I am unapologetic about the fact that I am here covering the Western Conference Finals, and it is something that I am not going to apologize for reminding the entire audience in this city about. I can't stand when I see folks comfortable with being in play. That ain't enough. You have to close at some point. You don't win all the time. Nobody does. But 17 years with this talent and not one single championship to show for it, I am not going to let that slide. When are you going to close, Sam Presti? When are you going to close? You've had Scott Brooks here, who's a damn good coach. You've had Billy Donovan here, who's a 2-time national champion at Florida before he became the head coach. Nobody's questioning their coaching acumen. But when you look at the personnel that they've been able to accumulate through picks, through free agency, trades, etc., the fact remains that they've been pretty damn impressive. And you've looked at them and said, why don't you have a title? It doesn't seem to make any sense. When you ask those kind of questions, there's one person to look at, and that's the man that runs basketball operations. And so he is the reigning executive of the year. I want to be on the record saying he absolutely deserves it. He is an elite executive, an outstanding individual, a good man who's been incredibly loyal to this organization because he could have left to go elsewhere on many occasions, and he has not. So Sam Presti is to be revered in that regard. But it doesn't mean we don't get to ask you, when are you going to close? When are you going to be in a position to hoist that championship trophy? And they're in a position to do it this year. This is their first berth in the Western Conference Finals since 2016. And if you don't do it this year, with all those picks he's accumulated, he better damn well go out there and use them to go get a superstar player to join Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because at some point in time, this great basketball town that is Oklahoma City deserves a championship parade. And being in the mix ain't good enough. At some point in time, you got to deliver the goods. And it's time to call them out on that.
City's hungry for it. Certainly, I tell you what, if that parade happens, you're going to come back and join us. Right?
No, I'm not going to do that. It's y'all city, it's y'all time, and y'all deserved it. And I don't need to fly from to Oklahoma City to enjoy it with you. I'll be on TV giving you the props that you deserve.
There you go. I got to ask about the bench. It's been such a factor for the Thunder. It seems like throughout the playoffs, having people come off the bench and contribute, your Wiggins, your Cason Wallace, yes. Caruso, is that going to be a helpful factor moving into the series?
Incredible. Wallace is the future. This kid's got some skills, and I think that somebody like Lou Dort needs to watch himself because he's good, he's gifted, and he's tough as nails. He's a football player, he's a linebacker playing football, for crying out loud. He's tough as nails. But Wallace is so special, you can't keep everybody. And I think that if you're saying Presti and these guys, you're going to prioritize in all likelihood keeping him. And I think you have to look at that. I would say Caruso, the defense that he was playing on Jokic in Game 7 was just phenomenal. He deserves so much credit for that. Wiggins can play. The other Jalen Williams can play. They have depth. They have guys that can play, which once again highlights the fact that there are no excuses. You should be able to win it all. I mean, when you look at, if I had to encapsulate the Final Four of these NBA playoffs, I see the New York Knicks having a hell of a time trying to beat the Indiana Pacers, even though they could win that series. I give the Knicks a chance against Minnesota. I give them almost no chance against Oklahoma City. The difference is I think Minnesota can beat OKC. So even though OKC deserves to be the favorite, it would not surprise me at all if Minnesota won this series in 7 games. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint and just watching how things unfold, knowing what's necessary in order to capture the chip. People have to show up. That bench has to show up. Their depth has to be utilized. Shai has to be a star. Jalen Williams has to remember he's an all-star caliber player and play like it. And collectively, you have to find a way to deal with Ant-Man. During the regular season, splitting 2-2, the fact is that, he wasn't that great against you guys. But 3 of those games, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Dante DiVincenzo didn't play. Having to deal with them now makes things very interesting. So we're going to have to see what happens.
I just have one last question for you. Which do you see is more likely that we're going to see happen? Thunder sweeping or Stephen A. Smith presidential campaign?
Thunder sweeping, of course.
Come on, let's break some news.
I might have answered that question in the other way if it wasn't for my new contract. But last time I checked, I signed a new contract with ESPN. It's a pretty nice contract. Thank you. So I'm living life pretty well, and I've been told that if I were to run for the presidency of the United States, that I'd have to give up some of that money. I'm not inclined to give up my money now. That's not what I want to do. But in all seriousness, I love talking politics. I don't even consider it politics. I consider it social commentary because we're talking about people's lives and quality of life. And I think that, in America, one of the things that's really, really happened, I've been very, very disgusted with Capitol Hill because I think they have served to divide us. We have problems in this country, of course we do. But the vast majority of us are center, whether it's left or right, we're centrist. And we're God-fearing individuals who care about ourselves, but also about the quality of life of our fellow human beings. And I think that when you look at a lot of political figures, because their agendas are what they are, on both sides of the aisle, they use us all as pawns. And they create an atmosphere that turns us against one another. So I don't know you and you don't know me, but you look at me and I look at you, and all of a sudden we have this image of who we are without even knowing one another or talking to one another, in most instances because of the kind of stuff that they say and the kind of binary system that we're living in and the divide that they cause. And so for me personally, I believe that if I were to ever run in a fair campaign, I'd smoke them all. I wouldn't be worried about anything. I don't think it would ever happen with the Democratic Party. You got to go through super delegates and all of that stuff and get their approval and support, which I'm never inclined to wish for. On the GOP side, that's been Trump all day, every day with the MAGA right, and they've been running things, and he's done a great, great job of rallying those troops to help him out over the last decade or so he's on the party. But in the end, at some point in time, it would be nice to see somebody be about America, somebody be about what's best for all of us. We can't have everything, never can. What can we compromise on that brings peace and tranquility throughout the streets and the neighborhoods of America, no matter where you go, black, white, and everything in between? I don't think they're thinking about that. And if I was a candidate, that's exactly what I would be thinking about. So that's why I believe I'm confident. I've kept my name in the mix because I was asked to, but I'm no politician. I have no desire to be an elected official, but I am disgusted with what I see, and I would give anything to be on a debate stage with any of these politicians, going at them for the trifling stuff that they have done to this country spanning decades. I would smoke them all. That's what I believe.
It'd be fun to see. Stephen A., appreciate
Yes.
you. Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
time.
No problem.